Hey Internet, it's RJ. Welcome back. Thanks for tuning into the show today. In today's episode, we're doing a little career advice meets credit and finance, talking about is it worth your time to consider working at a bank? Specifically, what are the benefits of it? What do you need to know? What can you get out of it? How do you apply it to your everyday life? So, of course, if that sounds interesting to you, then go ahead, press the subscribe button, and let's get to work. Now, of course, this is going to be a highly subjective video because I'm just one person, so you should probably ask other people, especially if there's a specific field of banking that you want to go into. Now, I have worked at banks for about 10, 12 years now, give or take. So, I think I'm decent enough qualified to answer, and we'll talk about that as we go. So again, the spirit of the question is that, I have to work somewhere, right? So we put that aside. Why not work at a bank since, whether you like it or not, banks tend to control most things. Most things happen because someone's willing to lend money and, finance the deal, right? So if I worked for a bank, would it give me an advantage not only in this game, but just in everyday life? Of course, you can still go down the path if I want to work in a specific banking field. This will also be somewhat applicable to that as well, but this is more so just a generalization. And so the short answer is yes. It's really hard to work somewhere for a long time, for a year or 2 years, and not learn anything, right? That's why those threads on Reddit about, hey, I work here, ask me anything, right? Because people want to know. So it's really hard to, go and not learn anything. But how much you learn and how beneficial it is really depends on, you as a person, how much extracurricular work you want to put into it, right? So again, I started as what they would call a non-skilled hire. So, a skilled hire would be someone who comes in as like an attorney. You have skills, banks hire attorneys, right? Or you can just be a person there to push loans around, right? That was me. It's now debatable if I have any skills or not to this day, but we're still here. So I started, again, 2012, 2013 in the appraisal department of a bank or a mortgage company owned by a bank. Just uploading appraisal documents. So the thing that, the appraiser says this is how much your house is worth. Cursory review, upload it for underwriting. Then sometimes branch managers or brokers would call around the country, complain about their appraisal. Not really call centers, maybe like 10, 12 calls a day, nothing major. So talk to them about that kind of stuff, talk to the appraisers, things like that. And, from there, I went into project management, process work, that company, then to a title shop, then to another mortgage lender, then to the marketing department. And through the spirit of project management, process improvement, you end up working with all the different departments, as well as if sales has to go talk to a client or something. Sometimes you can be involved in that to learn other people's processes, definitely a lot of vendors. So enough experience over the 10, 12 years to at least be able to answer this from at least one perspective. So that's kind of how I got my start. And when I say it really depends on what kind of person you are, how I end up scaling up the banking knowledge was you show up, and it's probably early 20s, 22, 23, maybe, something like that when I started. And you go to a bunch of meetings, and people will all use words that you have no idea what they mean. Like AMC, this appraisal management company, FLIVE's fastest loan yet. Because the acronyms here coming from, again, it's 2012, so we're on the rebound from the financial crisis, and we're talking about implementing a lot of those Dodd-Frank changes. There were two senators, Dodd and Frank, who oversaw a lot of the, the financial reform. CFPB came around this time as well. So really that's where it starts. If you're the type of person I don't know any of these words, I can ask somebody, which you'd be careful about sometimes. We'll talk about why. Or I'm going to go and research this myself, see what these words mean. Then you're probably going to do a lot better if your goal is to just learn banking to be able to apply it in everyday life. Obviously it's going to make you better at your job too, but I'm really kind of the work is the work type person. So I'm really just there for this part to benefit my own life for being selfish, but I'd recommend that to everybody. So from there, I started getting into a lot of the books around the financial collapse. And the good news about books is they're not like textbooks anymore, but it's like a lot of audiobooks from Audible, right? So, they had one about Merrill Lynch falling and getting bought by Bank of America. Chase buying Washington Mutual was a good one. Of course, you've got Countrywide in there. You've got, everyone's done Too Big to Fail, right? There's just a ton of books out there that I would just listen to, swap it out for your regular podcast or whatever morning show you're listening to. And that right there, you're going to start to learn a ton, and you're going to start to put all the pieces together because a lot of these things overlap. Again, this is just mortgage banking for an example. It doesn't have to be, if that's not what you're into. It could be, books about trading or venture capital, what have you. But again, you could do this even if you worked at a hospital or you worked at Wendy's. Like you could still do this. The slight difference is that you're living it, you're immersed in it, so you can see it, and you still have access to people who you can ask clarifying questions to, and you're seeing it real time. That really helps put it all together. But that right there, I mean, if you're not going to do that piece, then it's not super helpful. Now, I say immersed in it. Another benefit of working at banks, at least as a non-skilled person to start, is that there was a ton of overtime, and we would work. I would try to do 75 or 80 hours a week. I've always just been obsessed with making money, and when you're that young, you don't really have another way to make money other than trade your time for dollars. So at the time, I thought it was cool. I didn't have much of a life, so you get a bunch of different, bunch of money basically, because you can get into overtime very quick. It's not that you're making a ton of money, like hourly wise, but it's just you get into overtime so fast, and it's just basically from like April to November, it's just like unlimited. So, I mean, it depends on the season, but that was my experience anyways. So from there, learning stuff on the side, right? And the nature of the job when you're doing project work and process work, it sends you to different areas, to go in and you have to help people document their processes and their procedures, figure out, what we're actually trying to solve for. And if you take, if you kind of stack all this stuff together, what you've learned versus what people are saying who do the job, then you really start to put the whole picture together. And then, yes, it does help you understand how money moves through the system. What is a bank's actual job to do? What does a mortgage rate actually mean? It's actually like we're pricing risk, basically. It's all like risk decisions, really, right? I'm not really going to go too much into like specifics on, each individual part, but, you get the point. So if you're willing to do all of that, then yes, I think you come out in it, and why not? It's going to be beneficial. Now, I will say it's nothing special, right? I mean, I've worked at a few different places. I've worked in healthcare for a little bit. I've visited a few client sites, vendor sites. And working at a bank is nothing special, right? It's catching up to, the fun tech thing where there's snacks and stuff like that. But, I mean, it's nothing special. So if you don't work there, I wouldn't say you're missing out. It's really just either I want to break into a field in banking or I want to just learn how to apply this to everyday life. Now, if we talk about how can you apply this to everyday life, well, again, stacking on, to our building story here, because I'd worked so many hours for my 2 or 3 years in production is what they call it before moving to a sort of a skilled hire, I guess you could call her a skilled person, being project and process stuff. I had a ton of money for like a 26, 27-year-old person, which is not really, it's not really a flex the way it sounds. We're talking about like $60,000, $70,000, maybe something like that. I didn't really know what to do with it, but I knew I needed to do something with it. And so that's how I ended up going down the path of like, I should buy some houses and rent them out. I have 2 houses. I'm not really talking about being a real estate mogul here. I want to keep this in perspective. But the thought process was really, I need to do something with this money, but I don't know what. So what do I know how to do? It's like, oh, well, I really know how mortgage lending works. Not the buy side, because I've never bought a house before, but the buy side is not hard. You get a real estate agent and say, hey, this is what I'm trying to do. You get a good enough one, you'll be fine. So, because of that, I was more comfortable than most, I guess you could say, just writing 2 large checks. I think the first one was like $20,000 or $25,000, just down payment all in. The other one was, I think, was $20,000 as well. Now it still feels weird. I think to this day, even if you buy a house, it still feels somewhat weird when you sign it and you write the check. But my point is, if I had spent more time on like the trading desk, for example, then I would have probably felt way more comfortable piling that money into Robinhood and just building a portfolio. But I went with what I felt comfortable with. So other jobs, you can work a ton of hours too. I was in healthcare for 4 years in patient financial services. We worked a ton of hours. So I could have had the same amount of money, but the difference is there's nothing in a hospital that like teaches you to invest that money, right? You invest in cures, I guess, maybe, but that's not really how it works. So, there's the difference. You could make a lot of money in both places, but because I had experience, I had that comfort level, I guess you could say, I was more comfortable at the time buying houses than maybe I should have. I could be seen as a little reckless. So that's the part where I think it helps putting the entire picture together. In addition to that, on the channel, I mean, I try to do a lot of videos that are more so about how the game is played, the things you need to know, the less popular stuff, but the most important stuff, because that's how you become deadly at the game, knowing the important stuff. Like we did one a while back about, bank marketing, right? Because, you'll get these offers that say that you can get the Chase Sapphire Preferred, but you actually can't because you're not going to qualify. How does that work? So again, over time, yes, if you're willing to put all the work in, outside to build the whole picture, then yeah, I think it's worth it. Now, additionally, really quick, if you want to get into a specific field of banking, if you're young, I still think it's worth it. Get in. You can usually find someone who, can help you out. Usually a lot of times they have these programs that are designed to get you over to, investment banking. I think I tried to be a commercial banker for a while, for like a year run, actually. They had a program at the first bank I was at, and for whatever reason, they just didn't care for me. I'm kind of an acquired taste, but they have programs like that. Now, in addition to that, again, if you're coming in as like a non-skilled person, like how do you branch out and meet people? Well, I think you have to be very careful with it. Obviously, the first 3 months, you definitely want to just learn your job, master that. But you really have to know the culture of your company, the true culture, not the culture that they write on the walls. The fact that, like, if you're coming in there, I'm like, hey, I'm really interested in like these other things. Some people look at you and like, hey, well, that's great. You're 22. Of course you're interested in all this other stuff. Other people will be like, look, kid, I'm not really here to do that. I'm here to do the job. So just shut up and do the job. You could run into that as well. So, let's say you ran into that, then you just got to learn how to frame it better so you can make it over to talk to other people. Again, we have a little bit younger audience, so some guys know this already. But so if you take it back to the appraisal deal, you could go to your boss and say, hey, look, because you always want to come with a plan, not just an ask or a question and give them work. So like, hey, look, appraisal sits underneath risk management. We talk to underwriting all the time. They call me 3-4 times a day. It'd be really great if I knew more about what they did and what they were looking for from us. So here's 4 people I've identified that I talk to a lot. I'd like to meet with them for 30 minutes each. If it's okay with you, work's all caught up on. Here's a good day to do it, and I'll do a teach back to the rest of the team. Well, that helps. That helps your boss because he can check a box. She can check a box for, teach backs or team building or, what have you, employee development. And you can start branching out that way to start putting the whole piece together, the whole pie together, as well as your additional resources outside, which YouTube can be one of them. Got some books, you name it, right? So you could start that way, and then from there you could really figure out, how do I get over to the trading desk, right? Usually once you get in, it's a lot easier to transfer. They're probably not, when you transfer, they're probably going to stick it to you on salary, meaning you're already internal and you don't have a ton of skills. So we'll send you over there and give you the shot, but we're not going to pay you that much. That's fine. You just know that, and then you can get over there and then hang out for a year, learn it all, then go make your money at your next move, right? So, there's that path as well. So overall, those are my thoughts of working at a bank. It's nothing special. The work is the work. Again, I don't mean to be depressed. That's just that's my approach to YouTube. The work is the work as well. But if you're willing to put in the extra work, extra study, I do think it's worth it. That's how I've been able to use it everyday life, and that's how I've been able to, talk about this a little bit more in depth, a little bit different angle than others perhaps. So if you need something to do and a bank comes up, I think it'd definitely be worth looking into. Again, we're not going to be super fun like tech companies, but, we have all the money, and that counts for something. So anyways, guys, that's going to do it for this one. If you liked it, drop me a thumbs up down below. If you found it particularly interesting, consider subscribing to the channel, because, of course, we're posting content just like this every single week. Right back here every Sunday with all the news you can use in the week that was on credit and finance. Let me know down below if you work at a bank, what your thoughts are. If you're trying to get into banking, for other reasons, you can let me know that as well. Between the community, we can probably get you some answers, get you on the right path. And of course, if you do make it to a bank, don't forget where you came from here when you get all your insider information. Anyways, guys, that's going to do it for this one. As always, thank you so much for watching. We talk to you very soon in the next one.